Mandatory minicamp day number 1 officially in the books. So what stood out, who stood out, and what was the unexpected? That plus more on Wednesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for June 11th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate that because the show grows each and every day because of your consistent support and because of the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes. If there is no Ari, there is no YouTube page. So we shout him out. We appreciate him. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well, as many of you do, at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line's there for you at 707-654-4693. And as you can imagine, a lot of really good calls, lots of really good texts. So we'll definitely close out the show as we normally do, hearing from you. Again, we got a bunch of feedback, so I'll try to hustle through it and get as much in as possible. That's how we'll close out the show. Segment number 2, I went back and forth, had a couple different things that I wanted to talk about, or had a couple different elements that I wanted to go to in segment number 2. First of all, had a really good conversation with the great Lincoln Kennedy following practice on Tuesday. Really good stuff, and it's always great to catch up with Lincoln. You know, he's a wealth of knowledge, so I was going to bring that to the show and just put that in there at segment number 2 because I'm sure that you would love to hear from him, but I decided to hold off and really talk about what stood out to me the most since Pete Carroll and John Spytek have been in the building, have been in place as the GM and the head coach of the team, and the fact that there's not a lot of outside noise. There's not a lot of being noisy from the team. When there's some noise going around the National Football League, there's not any when it comes to the silver and black. It's very peaceful right now, and that's a good thing. I'll explain what I mean by that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here in segment number 1, just giving you a recap of day 1 of mandatory minicamp. We'll jump into that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that's FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Let's get into it. Day 1, mandatory minicamp. On Tuesday, I rolled out a bunch of different subjects that I'd be paying attention to, what I was really looking for, some keys that I was looking for in day 1 of practice. And the biggest key was the big fella, Christian Wilkins. We know that he's been out. He was on IR. He left the team early in the season last year, after 5 games. He had the Jones fracture, had to have the surgery. He's rehabbing. He was out there during OTAs for a little while. Last time I got to see him at OTAs, he was working off to the side. So one of my biggest elements of what I was paying attention to at practice on Tuesday was there going to be a Christian Wilkins sighting? Was I going to see the big fella at any capacity, right? Whether that's working in team drills, whether that was in the swimming pool or anywhere. Well, nothing. I didn't see Christian Wilkins at all. Now, that doesn't mean that he wasn't in the building somewhere. We obviously didn't go in the building. All we did is go to the meeting room where the media always meets before we go out to the practice facility, and then we went out to the practice facility. So I'm sure he was in the building doing some kind of rehab, working with some kind of trainer, doing some kind of film work. I'm sure he was there. In mandatory minicamp, you've got to be there if you're under contract or you're subject to fines. So I'm sure he was in the building somewhere, but he wasn't practicing. Now, that's been the one area of concern so far with this team. We could talk about concern when we look at, the cornerback room. Are they going to be able to stand up? Is the linebacker room going to be able to hold its own? As a defense, do they have enough depth? We could do that all the time. But the real area of concern that so far I think that any of us have when it comes to this team is Christian Wilkins going to be ready to play this season? Is he going to be ready to start training camp? Or is he going to hit the PUP list, right? What is going on with the rehab of Christian Wilkins? That's been the biggest question. And, on Tuesday, that didn't get answered because he wasn't out there at practice. I don't expect to see him at practice today or on Thursday. And, all we can hope for is that we see him at the beginning of training camp coming up at the end of July. So that was one box checked, looking for big number 94, and didn't see him. Second of all, I wanted to look at the cornerbacks. I wanted to check out the secondary. How are they playing? Now, it's not real football. They don't have pads on. They're not being physical, but you can kind of see if guys are understanding what they're supposed to be doing, if they're rotating over like they're supposed to be, if they look like they are picking up the scheme of what Pete Carroll wants. Now, we know that a lot of them have the experience with Patrick Graham because he's been the defensive coordinator there for multiple seasons, but Pete Carroll's going to add his own twist to it. So is everyone understanding what they're looking for and what Pete Carroll is looking for? So the starting cornerbacks, Eric Stokes and Darian Porter, right? That was something that Tashawn Reed from The Athletic reported, a week ago or so when I wasn't out at practice, that those were the two starting corners, Eric Stokes and Darian Porter. Darian Porter is the 3rd-round pick out of Iowa State. Eric Stokes is the former 1st-round pick by way of the Green Bay Packers, who had a really good rookie year and then was banged up and injured throughout the course of his year. So he signed a free agent deal on a 1-year deal. But the deal is that both those guys, they fit the type. And what do I mean by that? Size and speed that Pete Carroll looks for in defensive backs. They're both very Seattle Seahawk looking type corners. And Darian Porter, obviously he doesn't have a ton of experience when it comes to playing the cornerback position, but so far so good. Again, it's very early. It's early June, so don't pencil him in as a starter. Don't say that, Q said he's going to be the guy. Look, I like him. I think that he has a chance to be someone, but he's going to have to build it, and it's early on. The one good thing about Darian Porter is what Patrick Graham said when we met with him last week, is the fact that when he does make mistakes, he doesn't make that same mistake twice. So that is a positive. But Eric Stokes, Darian Porter, starting corners, Darnay Holmes, the nickel, Palamau and Jeremy Chin were the safeties out there, and Jacorian Bennett. You saw him running with the 2s. You also saw them kind of mixing and matching. You'd see the 1s, and then you'd see a guy from the 2s step in with them. Like they were trying out different scenarios and different combinations to see what fits. But for the most part, Jacorian Bennett, who, one, is coming back from injury, right? He went on IR. He had a torn labrum. We actually found out more about that following practice on Tuesday and how severe it really was for him, what he was really going through last year in 2024. But he's coming back from that. Plus, he's also learning the Pete Carroll style, and he's not really the prototypical size of a Pete Carroll corner, right? He's a little bit shorter. He does have the speed. He does have the dog in him, and he was playing really well in 2024 until he went down, had to shut it down and go get his shoulder surgery, and then end up the season on IR. So Jacorian Bennett running with the 2s, but he does look healthy. He talked to us after practice, and he sounds like everything is going really good. Tyreek Wilson is another guy that I wanted to pay attention to see what he looked like, see how quickly he was moving station to station. And I'll be honest with you, nothing really stood out to me about Tyreek Wilson. And that's not a bad thing or a good thing. Nothing stood out to me like he didn't jump off the page like, oh, man, this guy looks fast or this guy looks slow. Nothing. It just kind of blended in with everybody. Right. It's funny. The year that Yannick Ngakoue was with the Raiders, that was the training camp, mandatory minicamp, all that I remember coming back and saying, man, Max Crosby looks really fast. He looks faster than I remember him. And I remember talking to a lot of the media members like, man, this dude looks really fast. Like that stood out to me. You can't, again, you're not going to learn anything. There's no physicality going on, but certain things you can pick up. And speed is one of them. And Max was looking really fast that summer. And we had just we found out later on that he had gone to rehab. He got clean. He didn't have that alcohol weight on him anymore. And he was a lot faster. And Yannick Ngakoue was pushing him. And that's when really Max started to take that next step. But that was something that stood out to me in a major way. I was wondering if we were going to see that from Tyree on Tuesday. And I really didn't. Like I said, nothing really stood out to me about Tyreek Wilson. And again, I'm not saying that that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just, he just kind of blended in with the crowd. So he'll obviously be someone that I continue to pay attention to the next couple of days to see if there's a moment where it's like, boom, there it goes, it clicked or not, right? And again, you're not cutting the guy and you're not praising the guy, from what he does in mandatory minicamp, right? It's all about training camp. It's all about preseason. It's all about earning your spot on the team. So Tyreek Wilson, again, wasn't bad, wasn't good. He just kind of, like I said, blended in with everybody. Now, I said on Tuesday's show, there's always something or someone that stands out to you that you really didn't expect. And there was a few for me on Tuesday. One, Big Michael Mayer. He was targeted quite a bit. It looked like that there was a very big effort to make sure Big Mike was involved in the offense. We know what Brock Bowers is going to do from the tight end position. We know how great he was his rookie year. Obviously, Big Mike hasn't had the same kind of success so far in his career, right? His rookie year, that was the Josh McDaniels-led team. He wasn't very good. I don't want to say he wasn't even very good. He just wasn't used, right? The Raiders, for some reason, would go to him early in the game and then never go to him again. And then last year, he had to step away for the personal reasons and just wasn't out there, right? He came back at the end of the season. So Big Mike is out there. They're feeding him the ball. He looks very active. He looks quick out there. Like I looked at it and I knew that he was going to have a role. Chip Kelly talked about it, but I just didn't know what the role was going to be. And again, it's just mandatory minicamp, but there was obviously a big effort to make sure Big Mike got involved. Also, with that being said, talking about getting involved, Dante Thornton, 4th round pick out of Tennessee, wide receiver, another tall, fast dude, right? He's a guy that they made a very big effort to make sure that he got involved. Matter of fact, he had a really nice touchdown catch over Jeremy Chin, where Jeremy Chin was in great coverage. It just was a better pass, and it was a great catch from Dante Thornton. He just climbed the ladder, went up there and got it, secured the ball, and it was a touchdown. Geno Smith threw it on a dime, right? I mean, that's the one thing Geno Smith has is some really good accuracy. I got to give him credit for that. But, again, just like I was saying that they were trying to make sure that Big Mike got involved and got the ball, they were doing that with Dante Thornton as well. Thinking about Darian Porter as the cornerback. It's funny, man. 3rd round pick, 4th round pick, 2 guys that are tall and fast, right? But yeah, Dante Thornton was definitely getting the ball early and often in practice on Tuesday. So obviously, I'm going to pay attention to see if Big Mike and Dante Thornton continue to be involved as heavily as they are in the Raiders' offense. And then one other thing stood out to me, and then we'll get into segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. And this is something that me and Vinny Bonsignor were talking about at practice. There literally was 3 plays in a row that the players were all the same. It was all the same 11 out there for all 3 plays, and they were all lined up in the same position. And there was 3 catches in a row, right, that went to the sideline. It was a sideline that we were standing on. 3 catches in a row, but it was by 3 different guys, but it was in the same spot. So what am I saying? I'm saying that the offense looked the exact same, right? The formation looked the exact same. The players, exactly the same. So if you're a defender, you're saying, okay, I see they just ran this play. They just ran it with the same formation. Okay, it's going to be the same thing. But instead, something else came off of that, and another player ended up in that same position. Now, the ball ended up in the same spot all 3 times, but it was 3 different guys that ended up catching the ball. So Chip Kelly's offense, right, a lot of the formation will look the exact same, but can have many different results off of it. That's something that we talked about was very important last year, and that was something that Luke Getsy, and we know that didn't work, the offensive coordinator. He had mentioned that, I like to do things that look exactly the same, but you can build off it, almost like a tree trunk, right? The tree trunk is all one solid piece, but then there's a bunch of different branches off of it. That's what Luke Getsy was trying to sell. Well, Chip Kelly has been there, done that. And we saw that 3 plays in a row, and me and Vinny looked at each other. I believe, who was it? It was Brock Bowers got 1 ball. I want to say it wasn't Thornton. Trey Tucker got another one. Who was the 3rd one? Oh, Jack Besh. And Jack Besh caught the 3rd pass. So, again, they were all lined up in the same exact spot, same exact formation, but 3 different pass catchers at the same spot. It wasn't one of those like, oh, that was a mistake. It was a different look for the offense. So that stood out as well. So I'm going to definitely want to pay attention to that to see if that's something that we will see more of moving forward. Because again, if you can make your offense look the same every time, but have different elements off of it, that's how you keep defenses on their toes. So that's what I got for you for segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Just a little bit of a recap of what I saw and what I was able to, take away from day 1 of mandatory minicamp, as day 2 of mandatory minicamp is later on this afternoon. Looking forward to that. Coming up in segment number 2, the Raiders, they're a very quiet team, while other teams around the league are not, including some big star players that missed the start of their team's mandatory minicamp. We'll break all that down in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that is FanDuel. The NBA Finals, they are in full swing. Game 3 is tonight. Indiana, OKC, it's all knotted up at 1. And every night's going to deliver highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot, a.k.a. Tyrese Halliburton gets loose, or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. And don't get caught slipping. SGA is going to bring the action each and every night. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win really big. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's all good. It's the perfect time to sign up and get in on the action. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to talk about the fact that the Raiders are a very quiet team, and that's a good thing, right? There's times that, even last year, right, the Raiders were making a lot of noise. They were talking about the media and the way that they were disrespected them and saying that they weren't going to win very many games. And I remember getting pretty hyped up, man. Training camp, guys were talking like Jack Jones and AP and Max Crosby and others, Nate Hobbs, they were talking. And I was like, man, these guys, they're ready to go and show everybody that, what they really are made of. And I was fired up and excited. And I remember a lot of Raider Nation was calling in and texting in on the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line. I was like, yeah, Q, I think it's just too much noise. I think they're talking too much. They just need to go ahead and be quiet, put your head down, and play. Well, obviously, we know how it shook out in 2024. They only won 4 games. And half the guys that I mentioned aren't there anymore, right? Jack Jones, gone. Nate Hobbs, gone. Obviously, Max is around. AP, gone, right? So the majority of the guys that were doing the talking are not around in 2025. Now in comes GM John Spytek and head coach Pete Carroll. And, being at mandatory minicamp on Tuesday, what you notice is it's just a sense of excitement, a sense of energy, guys going out there competing, guys wanting to be there. Like, I couldn't tell you how many times over the past couple of weeks when we've been at OTAs or even mandatory minicamp like on Tuesday, and we hear somebody talk about having fun. Now, again, it's June. You should be having fun, right? I mean, you don't have any pads on, any of that. You're not getting cut from the team right now. It should be fun. But they're literally enjoying coming to work. They're enjoying competing with each other. And there's no contract holdouts. There's no wondering if a player wants to be there or not, right? I mean, look, Colton Miller was there, present, playing, participating, right? He was very active in mandatory minicamp on Tuesday. Remember, he's a guy that has no guaranteed money on his deal, didn't have any last year, doesn't have any this year, right? He wanted to get that contract extension. He missed a couple days early in this offseason with OTAs, and then he's been there ever since. And obviously he was there at mandatory minicamp. He even talked about his contract and how, hey, look, I want to be here. This is what I'm all about, and I only know it one way. Like, put your head down and go. Matter of fact, here's just a couple minutes of what Colton Miller had to say when he met with us following practice on Tuesday. Check it out.
Obviously, you're going into the final year of your deal. For you personally, what went into your decision to commit to coming in and practicing throughout OTAs and being here at mandatory minicamp?
I've been here for a long time, man. This is it's what I do, and looking to just improve each day and the direction the organization is going with Pete. He's preaching competition. We got to make everyone better, including the young guys. So I'm gonna continue doing what I'm doing and lead the guys, and that's how I'm rolling.
This time last year, you were coming off off-season surgery. How much different do you feel this year? Just kind of having that full year being healthy.
Oh, I feel great. Like last year, I think I had maybe 2 or 3 training camps heading into the season. So I like where I'm at right now. I got a lot more ramp up. So. I'm liking it.
Do you like where the organization is right now with Pete and the Chip Kelly and the changes and the new quarterback?
I love it. The pieces we've added this offseason, the energy, the direction. Pete's he's really master crafted, coming in and how to do things. And the guys we're taking it and we're rolling. It's been really fun. And we've gotten so much. This is probably one of the most productive OTAs I've been a part of. It's not easy. Like we're kind of flying around,
right.
But no, it's been really good, and I'm excited where we're headed.
Does it make you want to extend the stay that much more to be part of this moving forward?
Oh, I want to be a Raider. I want to be a Raider for life. No, I love it here. I don't want to go anywhere else. So, and I only know one way to do it, and that's showing up, getting better each day.
You mentioned flying around at the OTAs. What's the most important for you and your position group right now at this stage of the game?
Right now, with OTAs, is execution. We have a lot of plays in Chip. Chip is he's putting a lot in, and defense, they're getting like it's almost like game looks. So the biggest thing is execution, communication, and just improving your technique each day.
Again, Colton Miller only knows one way, wants to be a Raider for life, feels great as opposed to, this time last year when he was still rehabbing and wasn't doing anything. Remember I mentioned on Tuesday, he had the head on backwards talking to JPJ on the side. Now they're both out there working, looking like leaders. And he sounded like a leader, right? He sounded like a leader who wants the best for his team. I bring this up because you look around the league, and on Tuesday, mandatory minicamp opened up for a lot of teams. In Cincinnati, Trey Hendrickson, he's had 35 sacks the last 2 seasons. No show, right? He's trying to get that contract taken care of, so he wasn't there, right? Even their first-round pick, Shamar Stewart, actually was there, but he's not signed. He's, in the middle of a language in the contract type of holdout thing, so that looks like it's going to get messy. TJ Watt for the Pittsburgh Steelers, 30.5 sacks the last 2 seasons. He wasn't there in Pittsburgh. They got Aaron Rodgers in town, but now TJ Watt's not there, right? Neither one of these guys at mandatory minicamp because they're looking for contract extensions. In D.C., Pro Bowler wide receiver Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry, he doesn't show up to mandatory minicamp because he's looking for a contract extension as well. But none of that's going on with the Raiders. Again, no contract holdout. Someone hit me up on Twitter on Tuesday during practice. Q, is there any holdouts? No. The only guy who's not here is Christian Wilkins, and that's not a holdout. That's an injury rehab. He's just not out there participating, right? No wondering if a guy wants to be there. Remember last year, Devontae Adams, there was all the back and forth. Is he going to want to stick around? Is he going to ask for a trade? What's the case going to be? That was a lot of noise that we started hearing very early. I remember in OTAs last year, Devontae was basically a no-show. There was, times that you never saw him out there in the mandatory minicamp. You saw him one day, another day he was in the pool. It was just really hit or miss with Devontae, and we know how that eventually played out. No questions about Max, right? John Spytek and company took care of that contract early in the process. One, they didn't have to break the bank on him. They didn't have to give him $40 million like the Cleveland Browns did with Myles Garrett. Now you got a guy like Trey Hendrickson that wants his money. You got a guy like Micah Parsons who wants his money. You got a guy like TJ Watt who wants his money. And Max is signed, sealed, and delivered. Right? They took care of that. So it's all quiet on that front. There's no quarterback controversy. Last year, is it going to be Aiden O'Connell? Is it going to be Gardner Minshew? Right? Antonio Pierce talking about he wants to see someone take the bull by the horns. Right? They're out there competing against each other, but never had any real sense of what was going on. There is no quarterback controversy. It's Geno Smith's team. Right? Aiden O'Connell right now is the number 2 quarterback with Cam Miller, the 6th-round pick, sitting there at the number 3 spot. Right? And so everything is falling in line. All the players are following the Geno Smith lead, right? Chip Kelly is excited about Geno Smith. The players, offensively and defensively, all following in Geno Smith's lead. So there's no quarterback controversy for the Raiders. And again, the only question is when Christian Wilkins will get back, right? And for the most part, that's not even a big question or like some big secret. It's not like Pete Carroll, kind of gave us the coach speak and said, well, he'll be out there when he's out there. He'll be ready when he's ready. He didn't give us that. He's like, hey, man, this has been a challenge. It's difficult to come back from. So it's funny that things could be so much different and so much better. You look around the league and you see teams that are making a lot of noise and you just wonder what in the world's going on with them. I mentioned Cincinnati and their situations. We know they have offensive firepower, but what are they going to do, right? What's happening there? They've got all that noise around that organization with their defense, right? I mean, the Cowboys always have noise around them, right? Because that's just that's the Jerry way. He always wants to have some kind of noise going on and all eyes on him. But teams like the Chiefs, they're not making any noise. They're just going out there and participating and getting it done, right? For the most part, the Baltimore Ravens do that. And now when they have a Lamar Jackson contract situation, then all of a sudden it becomes a little bit of noise. But for the most part, they're pretty quiet as well, right? The really good teams, the Buffalo Bills, yeah, they've got the James Cook situation. But guess who was at camp? James Cook, right? Yeah, he wants a contract extension. He's not happy with what he's making. But who was there at mandatory minicamp? Yeah, James Cook. He was there. Buffalo Bills, they're doing it the right way. They're really being quiet about just handling their business. And I just feel like that's what Pete Carroll and John Spytek have brought to the Raiders, a calming sense, where it's not a lot of talking. There's not a lot of chattering or pushing back or fighting with the media, right? I mean, there was times in training camp where there was players that was barking at the media, local media, right? That for no reason, right? It's wild. It's just this year seems so much different. And again, it's early June. Everyone's happy right now. They're not going through a grueling training camp in the middle of summer in Vegas where it's 110, 111, and it was very hot on Tuesday. But it's only a 3-day camp. Maybe once training camp goes on and it's, like I said, grueling 4 or 5 days in a row, whatever the case may be, maybe it'll change up a little bit. But for the most part, everything sounds really positive. Even Ja'Cory Bennett, who I said in segment number 1 is running with the twos right now, he's even in a good place. Like, he met with us following practice. I was wondering, it's funny, I was talking to a media guy that was standing next to me. He's like, are you surprised JB is running with the twos? And I said, he's coming back from rehab. He's learning the Pete Carroll way. He's not really the exact size of a Pete Carroll style cornerback, but he's out there. He's competing. He's having a good time. Matter of fact, he met with the media following practice. Here's a couple of minutes of what JB had to say.
It's early in the process, but how are you feeling so far as just picking up everything and being healthy as well?
Yeah, no, it feels amazing, man. Like I haven't had like both my shoulders since college, So like, man, I go out there during games knowing that my shoulders go pop out. Like probably last season, my shoulder probably popped out like 5 times because I had like torn labrum. Like a lot of people don't know that, but I was just thugging it out. They'll put it back in, go back in or whatever. But it feels good to have it back right. I was just kind of, it's time to keep taking the next step.
Fred, what ultimately went into your decision? I'm assuming you had surgery to repair that torn labrum. Why did you shut it down, and what was the rehab process?
Man, this thing been holding on, hanging on the little the little muscles I have left. But no, I went in honestly. Like Doc was like, "Hey man, like we feel like it's best for you to kind of shut it down," and because it was just kind of something I just kind of been battling, and it could have been a lot worse than what it ended with. Because if I would have kept going out there, just kind of kept pushing through it, whatever. Things could have got a lot more uglier. So, but it was time for me to get it, and honestly, looking back on that, probably should have got it, a little minute ago, but I ain't want to take no off seasons off. I had to just keep, keep working. So yeah.
What's that secondary room like, and what's that competition like amongst you guys?
No, it's a lot of competition. Like, yeah, it's a lot of competition, but that's what's gonna make everybody better. Like, got Stokes, D-Cam, DP, Caillou, Sam, all them boys. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody's good. Everybody's nice. So it makes you have to go out here when you go on the practice field to just give it all you got. Just leave it out on the field.
D-Cam had to go into action last year. Got a lot of reps. How important was that for his just growth as an NFL player?
Nah, it's a lot. Like what helped me was experience. So him going out there in that fire, and he handled it well. And I was always in his corner. If you need anything, I'm there for him because I know how it is being a rookie out there, and it's just you like a deer in the headlights sometimes. You know what I'm saying? But he handled it well though.
Ja'Cory Bennett talking about playing with a torn labrum. Right, many didn't know about the severity of his injury. The fact that it would pop out multiple times throughout the course of the games he was playing. Like, he would hit the field and know it's going to come out at some point. I'm going to have to leave the field and pop it back in. And that's exactly what he would do. Pop it back in, get back on the field. As you heard him say, probably should have had the surgery and got it cleaned up a long time ago. He hasn't had 2 healthy shoulders since college, right? He's going into year 3, and then it's cleaned up now. He feels good and he's competing. Lots of competition. And his mentality sounds great, even for a guy who was playing very well in 2024 until he got injured. And now it looks like, again, it's just mandatory minicamp, but, he technically is running with the 2s. So one could say that, man, he got banged up. Staff got replaced. It's his 3rd head coach in 3 years now in the National Football League. And maybe he's not really the number 1 guy that they're looking for, even though we know what kind of level he could play at when he's out there and he's healthy, because we saw it during games and he looked really good in 2024. He's excited about going and getting the ball. I just played a couple minutes of what he had to say, but, he's talking about Pete Carroll and everyone is about going and getting the ball. And he said, that's the part of the game that I need to add to my repertoire. I need to be able to go and change the game. The pass breakups are good. Had a lot of those in 2024 until he went down. But he didn't have any interceptions. Doesn't have any career interceptions. That's the part of the game that he wants to add. And that's what he said Pete Carroll and company are all about. So he loves that, right? And he's talking about he's got that dog in him. It's just, again, he could be a guy that's salty. He could be a guy that's, walking around pouting or not going 100%. I mentioned Lincoln Kennedy in my conversation I had with him. He said something and reiterated something that I've been saying for a while, that, nothing's going to be given to any of these guys. You're going to have to go out there and earn it. And the one thing about all these guys that are out there competing right now, none of them have the attitude of, I don't really want to be here, or I don't really want to practice. They're all getting after it. There's no, half-assing it like Marcus Peters did when he was part of the Raiders, or, questionable moments like Jack Jones had when he was members of the moment. I mean, everyone is going 100 miles an hour and looking like they want to be there, right? And even Lincoln Kennedy pointed that out. He said, from what I've been able to see, everyone is showing that they want to be a part of this team, and that's a step in the right direction. So, again, none of this that I'm talking about right now is putting W's in the win column, right? It's not putting more numbers and notches in the win column. You're not winning any games right now, but I'll tell you what, you're developing good habits. And that's something that head coach Pete Carroll talked about. They want to get into good habits and habit forming right now. And so that's what they've got to do. Obviously, when mandatory minicamp gets wrapped up on Thursday, they're going to go off. They'll be off for the summer, but it's going to be about the work that they put in while they're off, right? You can't just all of a sudden show up in camp and think that you're going to work your way into shape. This staff's not going to go for that. You need to put in the work. You need to be in your book. You need to be, ready to go, in shape, day one of training camp, hit the ground running, right? A lot of coaches talk about that. I promise you, this coaching staff is going to be about that. So those guys are going to have a lot of work to do, even when they leave the facility following Thursday. And some won't even leave and go anywhere because there's so many great things there at the facility, including, great meals that they have prepared for them all the time. They have a great facility, workout room, everything. They could stay there and put in the work, but they're not getting coached up by the player or by the coaches. They have to do all that work on their own. But again, it's very quiet around the Raiders, and that, my friends, is a good thing. Coming up in segment number 3, your calls and texts after that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about another great sponsor here on the show, and that is Skylight Calendar. You can say goodbye to sticky notes, scribble plans on the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites. Why is that? Because the Skylight Calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized without the stress. So what is it? Sleek digital display syncs with your existing calendars, whether it's Google, Apple, Outlook, and more, making it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, and reminders all in one easy-to-see place. So you get no more of the excuses from your family about, oh, I didn't know about it, right? You can assign everyone their own color in your family so they know that, hey, this is meant for me, this is meant for him, this is meant for her, right? It's very easy to organize, and you get a 15-inch HD screen where you can see your entire whole week. It will help you stay focused and less overwhelmed. Right now, Skylight is offering all listeners of the Locked On Raiders podcast $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. That's skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That is SKYLIGHTCAL.com, skylightcal.com/NFL. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. As usual, went a little long in segment 1 and 2, so going to try to get this wrapped up here in segment number 3 a little quickly. Not going to be able to get to as many calls as I anticipated, but we'll go ahead and jump right into it. Again, 707-654-4693. A text from Clayball from Riverbank, Cali. Good evening, Q. It's Clayball from Riverbank, California. I'm a longtime listener, first-time texter. I've always appreciated your positivity towards Mark Davis. He's taken a lot of heat and slander within the fan base at times, and it's always bothered me. I do not agree with every decision he makes, but he always is doing anything he can to make the Raiders a winning organization. This offseason, it really feels like things are changing for the better. I think he deserves some credit. Coach Carroll looks juiced and excited to coach again, and Spytek just had what feels like a very good draft. Maybe I'm setting myself up for disappointment with how excited I am for this franchise, but things feel very positive right now. Thanks for all that you do, Q. Go Raiders. That's from Clayball from Riverbank, Cali, and I agree with you 100%. And Mark Davis doesn't always make the right decisions. He'll be the first to admit that. He said that this organization has failed under his watch. He hasn't lived up to it, what the expectations are, but he's trying, and he's not afraid to continue to try. And the good thing is that it does feel like this is a very positive move that he's made with Pete Carroll coming in, with John Spytek coming in, with Tom Brady, part of the ownership. All the moves that he's made to get some power people in place feels like it's the right way to go. I had my buddy the other day, Bill from Pittsburgh, Cali, hit me and say, if Pete Carroll turns this organization around to get back to being respectable and a winning organization, where would you put him as all-time greats with the Raiders? And I thought, well, first, it's June. I don't want to think that too far ahead, but man, could you imagine if he gets this thing back on track and this is the winning formula and all of a sudden he builds that culture that the Raiders, no matter who the coach is, could have a lot of success with, and John Spytek continue to press the right buttons in the draft? Yeah, all of a sudden you're going to look at Pete Carroll, you're going to look at John Spytek, and like you said, you're going to look at Mark Davis and say, thank you, job well done, and keep it up. So yeah, I agree with you 100%, Clayball. Thanks so much for that text. Up next, got a call from Carlos from L.A. He's calling to provide some optimism about the Raiders in the upcoming season with the new staff. Here's Carlos from Los Angeles.
What up, Q? This is Carlos from Los Angeles. Just wanted to call in and provide a little bit of optimism for this Raiders team this season and going forward. I know it's been a rough 25 years for us Raider fans, for the Raider Nation, but I feel like this season can be a movement in the right direction with the personnel, the coaches, front office. I feel like they're setting themselves up for success. I feel like they're comparable to what the Lions have done in the past few seasons. And in 2, 3, 4 years, we can be really counting on this team to be making a push for the division against the Chiefs, and then making a playoffs and then a deep playoff run. Just wanted to provide some optimism. I know it's been tough, but they have a good leadership, good coaches, good personnel, and I hope I'm right. I've been proven wrong, but I feel like it's a change of tide coming on here. Just wanted to provide some optimism. Love your show. Talk to you later.
Carlos, thanks so much for the call and the optimism, but I'll be honest, man, I don't think that there needs to be any more optimism, right? I think everything is about as optimistic as it can be right now. Everything is really positive to the point where, no joke, I keep like just looking around the corner, like looking, all right, well, something's got to give, right? Something's got to give. Everything just feels too good. I mention it all the time that I talk to my dad following my haircuts every single Saturday. I give him a call on my way home, and I always try to give him the latest rundown on the Raiders, and he even says, man, it sounds good. It sounds good. It looks good. Everything I'm reading online is a lot of positivity, and it's funny because, us as longtime Raider fans, it's almost like we just feel like something's bound to happen, right? The inevitable is bound to happen, like the other shoe's going to drop, but it doesn't necessarily mean it has to, right? It's something that we're not used to. We're not used to this much positive energy being around this team, right? It doesn't matter. I mean, especially since I've been here in Vegas in 2021, there has not been this much positive energy, right? The Raiders made the playoffs in 2021, which was the last year Gruden was there, and obviously Bisaccia took over, and that was a wild year. Obviously, for many different reasons, it was a wild year. So then they made the playoffs. Then Ziegler and McDaniels comes in. They trade for Devontae, and everything was, oh, man, it's going to be great. It's going to be exciting. But then there was questions on, can Josh McDaniels be a good head coach? Well, we know the answer to that. It ended up being no. Right? And we all know how that all shook out. And but that was when it felt like it was probably at its most positive. And then before that, I feel like the biggest moment of positivity with this Raiders organization was following the 2016 season, right? Remember going into 2017, Marshawn Lynch was part of the team. Derek Carr was back healthy after breaking his ankle. And everyone was like, man, this is going to be a great team. They're going to go and take that next step. And they won the first couple of games. And then they went to DC in week 3 and all the wheels fell off. But that's really outside of the offseason between 2021 and 2022. And then obviously the 2016 season getting wrapped up, heading into the 2017 season. That's when it felt like it was at its most positive. And I feel like that's where it's at right now. It's a very positive vibe at this moment. So, yeah, I love your optimism, but there is plenty of optimism right now around the team. Thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Kenny from Long Beach. It says, hey, Q, it's Kenny from Long Beach. Quick question. How has Geno and Aiden O'Connell look during practice? I'm just wondering because there's a Raider fan page out there on IG that posted the other day saying Aiden O'Connell's outplaying him, and the guy thinks O'Connell's winning the quarterback battle so far. So when I scroll through the comments on the post and see people backing up Geno, he doubled down on how O'Connell looks so much better and not to sleep on him. I haven't seen anything in the news or media saying Geno's look bad in practice or that AOC is looking way better, except from this Raiders report guy on IG. What's your thoughts? Love your show. Go Raiders. That's Kenny in Long Beach. I don't know who you're talking about who's saying that, but there's no quarterback controversy. There's no quarterback battle. There's no Aiden O'Connell looks better than Geno Smith. I could just tell you from mandatory minicamp alone on Tuesday, I saw many times that Aiden O'Connell threw behind his receiver. I saw many times that Aiden O'Connell took a little longer to get the ball out of his hands. I saw a few times that as I count 1, 2, 3, sack, that'd be a sack. And I saw multiple times when Geno, wasn't able to get to his first read, was able to use his legs, move a little bit in the pocket, and then deliver the ball, right? Something that me and Vinny Bonsignor were talking about. So I'm not too sure who this is that is saying that Aiden O'Connell's playing better. I would just guess, this is just me guessing, my gut feeling, because I don't know who it is. I'm guessing it's someone that's not there at practice. That's just my gut feeling. And it's somebody that's trying to get you to react or get Raider Nation to react. I don't think anyone who's there at practice has any kind of thoughts that Aiden O'Connell's playing better than Geno Smith. But thanks so much for that text. Definitely appreciate you. We'll close things out with a call from Sean from San Diego. He's calling to talk about bringing in a veteran that nobody seems to have on their radar at this stage of the game. Here's Sean in San Diego.
Hey, Q, Sean from San Diego. I like the idea of bringing in some experienced players in the secondary. I think something or somebody that we haven't been talking about is Stefan Gilmore. I wanted to know what you thought about him. He's a Super Bowl champion, just like Jalen Ramsay. I haven't watched a ton of him play in the past couple of years, but when I do see him, he's always out there. He's always in the middle of things, causing chaos. I think the ultimate goal for signing Alexander or Gilmore or Ramsay is not just the playmaking, but also kind of that experience with such a young secondary that we have. And I see Gilmore as kind of a captain-type figure, and I think Ramsay will bring that energy. And we know Pete Carroll can handle that energy. I mean, Richard Sherman was all up in everybody's face. So I think he'd be a great pick for us, or not pick, but signing for us. And I'm just kind of curious what you thought about Stefan Gilmore.
Big Sean, thanks for the call. Stefan Gilmore, even at 34 going on 35, I think he can still play, right? He was in Minnesota last season, played well with the Cowboys a couple seasons before that. I can see him being a guy that they look at, but honestly, I don't think they're going to look at a veteran until maybe training camp. I don't think Ramsey's going to be a guy that they look at. I think Ramsey is a guy, well, one, he's going to cost too much money. I don't see the Raiders being a team that's interested in spending a lot of money on a guy at this stage of the game, right? $21.5 million is what Jalen Ramsey is going to cost. Now, I know that you might be able to get him on a cheaper deal as far as the draft capital goes, like maybe a 5th-round pick like we were talking about the other day on this show. But even then, you still got to pay $21.5 million, and I don't think that they want to do that. And, oh, by the way, he has no guaranteed money left on his deal, so he's going to want a new extended deal following that. So how much money is he? He's not going to take, some bargain basement. Maybe a Jair Alexander they look at. Apparently there's a few teams that are interested in him right now, but what's the cost? I would say that maybe they look at him if it's less than $10 million. I think it should be less than $10 million, be very incentive heavy. And if they, take a look at him, cool. But I like the Gilmore idea. I really do. He seems like a guy who's always, ready to go. He keeps himself in really good shape. And I think he would probably be a really good addition. But I just don't know if the Raiders are interested in that, especially with they have a lot of corners in the room. They just don't have the guys that, you just know as a matter of fact, oh, those are the starters, right? They're obviously going to have to earn those positions. So they might not even look to address it until training camp, and they think that, all right, well, we need to bring someone in because these guys aren't picking up what we're trying to teach them. So that's what I think, and where I think that the Raiders are at this stage of the game when it comes to bringing a veteran in. So thanks so much for that call. I do appreciate you. Got a text from Connor in Florida. We'll get that tomorrow. 6'7" from the west side of Phoenix, west side. We'll get him tomorrow. Raider Morpheus, he got a text in as well. We'll try to get that in on tomorrow's show. Of course, we'll be recapping mandatory minicamp day number 2, what stood out, who stood out, and, what may have, caught my attention that was unexpected, or maybe some of the same that we talked about here on the show today. So, of course, we'll have a full recap of that plus more coming up on Thursday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.